Hello there, my lovely jewelry makers. I'm Christina of CSLdesigns, and today I'm going to show you how to make this macrame bracelet with a button and loop closure. Now, I've used 3 different colours within this design, and using multiple colours of cord achieves this lovely chevron effect all the way along the main part of the bracelet. But we're only using a square knot to make this bracelet, so it's a pretty simple technique. Now, I'm also going to have a written tutorial for this bracelet for sale in my Etsy shop, so I'm going to leave a link straight to that in the description box down below the video. But if you want to learn how to make it, then keep watching. So these are the materials that we're going to need. Now I have my satin cord here. This is a 1mm satin cord, and I'm just using these 3 different colours, a red, an orange and a yellow. Of course you can mix yours however you want to. And then we also just need a shank button here for the clasp, and I'm just using this flower one. You can see we have the shank part on the back. Just make sure the hole is large enough to take 2 lengths of your cord through. So I'm going to have the material list in the description box down below, along with links for both materials and tools that you might need as well. So let's get it all ready and let's get started. Then we'll need to cut some lengths of our cord, and what I have first of all is 80 centimeters, and this is going to be the holding cord. Now I just chose to make this red, but ultimately it doesn't really matter because it's the holding cord. And then we'll need another 6 lengths here of about 1.5 meters each, and these are then going to be the working cords. Now what I've got is 2 lengths of each of my colours because I'm using the 3 different colours. Now to begin with, I'm going to be working on my mini macrame board here. It has these notches all the way around all of the edges, as you can see there, and this is going to make it much easier to work with. And I have my holding cord here. Now first of all, I just want to fold this over, so put the ends together. So I find, I'm going to have the ends together there, where the middle is, and that is then this loop, you could say. So I'm going to keep hold of that, and then I want to attach this holding cord to my macrame board. So what I want to end up with is also the middle of this cord kind of in the middle of my board. It's just going to make it easier, because first we're going to start working on making the loop. So I'm just going to attach my cord here, so I have the middle of the cord at about the middle of the board, so I know where that is, and then just attach it on the other end as well. So now I need to start making some macrame. So I'm separating out 2 lengths of my working cords here, and I've chosen the red ones because that's the colour I want my loop to be. And again, what I'm going to do is just make sure the ends are even there, and then I want to put all the ends together to also find the midpoint of these. So same principle, it's just so we know where the midpoint is that we're working with, just so we end up with even lengths once we get into the pattern. That's really the only reason. And again, I'm going to attach these again, so the midpoint of the cord is going to end up in the midpoint of the board, so basically about the midpoint of the other cord as well, the holding cord. And I'm just going to literally attach these 2 into that same slot just for now, and you can just put it through multiple slots to make it a little bit more secure. So I now know that I need to start making my macrame down in the middle here, and that's what we need to do now. So I'm going to be making, like I said, the loop first of all, using these working cords around that holding cord. And all I'm going to be doing is making square knots. So I'm going to get started here. I'm going to take, I just start with my left one, that's what I naturally do. Left one over the holding cord, then I take the right one over that, and then underneath everything in the middle, make sure to go underneath the holding cord as well, and then bring it up through the loop on the other side. So we then end up with this, with that holding cord intertwined in the middle there. Now I don't want to just pull it up towards the top here, because remember, we need to start making this in the middle. So I'm bringing it down, so I tighten this knot in the middle of the board. So that's the first half to make it secure, so it's going to stay. I'm going to make the other half the knot, so start with the opposite side. Bring that over, bring the other cord over that and underneath everything in the middle and up through the loop. And then just make sure that that first half is in the middle. And then we tighten the other half. And now it's going to stay in place. And all you want to do now is continue making square knots here underneath the first one. So we're going to end up with a row of them. And obviously how many you need to make depends on your button. So you basically need to end up with a length of this that's going to make the size loop to fit the button that you're using. Now what I'm doing here is I'm not making the whole length on this side, because that's the reason why I started in the middle. If we say once I've made the length on this side here, obviously I need to make more than this, but once I have, I'm just going to flip my board around and then I'm just going to continue making knots on the other side, so the same amount. So I want to make the half of the length that I need first, flip my board around and then make the other half. It's just so we end up using the length as evenly as possible. So they're as even as possible once we get to the pattern. So I now have my length of macrame and I've just taken it off the board here, and I've also double checked that the lengths that I have left here on both ends are more or less even. So what we need to do now is shape this. So I have my button handy as well, because obviously I just need to measure that, which you can do at any time also while you're doing the macrame, just to make sure obviously you have the correct length for the size loop that you need. But then I'm keeping it flat, but then just bringing the two ends together basically, which then creates that loop shape. And then make sure to keep them together, and you can check that the button will go through. So you don't want the loop to be too large, because then obviously it can kind of come out really easily, but also not too tight so it won't go through. But this fits just perfectly, so I know that I have the right length. So what I want to do now is basically fasten it in place so the loop stays as it is and as I want it. So I'm going to be using the two outer cords for that. So that's the furthest left cord, so working cord, and then the furthest right one. And you can pin this down if you want to, but I kind of find it easier just to do it in midair, you could say. Just keep them together, the ends there, and then you're going to have all these cords, so all the four cords that are coming straight down, they're going to be the holding cords right now. So I'm gonna take my furthest left one over all those, and then I'm gonna take the right cord over that and then underneath all the holding cords and bring it up through the loop on the other side, and then just gradually tighten it. You can just let go and make sure it's sitting properly, and then tighten the knot nicely. And of course we just need to do the other half to make it a full knot, again around all those holding cords. Now what I like to do is, once I've done this, it's going to stay in place, I like to just go in and take the cords here, hold on to that knot that we just made with my fingers, and then just take one cord at a time and just pull at it slightly, just to make sure I don't have any loose cord up here. I can just nicely tighten it up a bit and bring them down through the knot. So there, it's nice and tight. And again, you can obviously always just double check your button, and that fits perfectly. So now we're in a position here where I want to fasten this down to a board and make it a little bit easier to work on. So I'm now going to be working on my project macrame board here, alongside using these T-pins to help hold my work in place, make it easier to work with. So I have my loop here, I'm just going to place that on my board, and then I just want to put my pins through some of the work that I've already done to hold it in place basically. Now I like to kind of put it through the knots, but trying to avoid going through the cord, straight through the cord anyway, but kind of going in between, so where the little ridges and the knots are, just to avoid damaging any cord if you can help it. So just something a little like that. And then we have all the cords coming down from the very bottom of the loop. And what you're going to find is you should more or less naturally have your cords separated out. If not, then you might just have to adjust that a little bit. But I have my previous working cord that I just used, the two outer ones here. Then the next ones in are my two holding cords. So the original holding cord for the loop. They are also the shortest ones, so you can check that. And then the two middle ones are also going to be working cords now. So what I'm going to do is separate them out down the middle. So I basically have three on either side, and the middle in either group on either side are going to be the holding cord, so the short one. And this is now how I'm going to start. So we're kind of going to work down the two sides, alternating from side to side. So it doesn't matter what side you start on, but I'm just going to start on the left side here. So like I said, the middle one of these three, just put the other three out of the way, is the holding cord, and the other two are working cords. So I'm just going to have that coming kind of down here towards me, and then I'm going to start making just some more square knots around that holding cord. And when I tighten this, I'm just going to have it come out slightly at an angle. Make the other half. Like that. And again, I'm going to make a few knots in a row here, because it's just to create a bit of distance until we then get down and need to get into the main pattern. So that's two. And then what I want to do is make four in total here. So the third one. And then the last one, the fourth one. And again on this side here, I'm starting with the left cord. And now I have 4 square knots. So just going to leave that there for now. Move to the other side and basically do the same thing. What I personally like to do though is to get this as symmetrical as possible. It's not too big of a deal, but I just like to do it. Is now, because I'm on the other side, so I'm on the right side, I'm going to start with the opposite working cord as well. So start with the right one. So you can just kind of remember, start with the same side that you're working on. But like I said, it's not too big of a deal. So same principle, I'm going to make some square knots here, 4 in total. Also coming at a bit of an angle. So at this point here where I have 4 square knots on either side, this is the point where I want to introduce my other colours, and we can start to get into the main pattern. So I'm just going to grab one at a time. Again, I'm going to make sure to put the ends together so I can find the midpoint, and I'm keeping hold of that. And then I'm just going to start on the left here. So I'm going to pick up my holding cord, place the new colour of the working cord there behind, so the very midpoint of that new working cord goes behind the holding cord, and then you want to just make a square knot to attach it. So just keep hold of it and then tighten the cord or the knot, and then just do the other half to get the full square knot, like that, and then just push it up and have it sit right below, in my case here, the last red one, or just the last knot that we did before. And then underneath that, can just keep working on the same side. I'm going to take my yellow Again, find the middle, and then this is going to be attached the same way, now below the orange one, just using a square knot. And do the other half, and again push that up, so they are now sitting below each other, and you can see I now have all my colours incorporated on this left side. Now of course we need to do the same on the other side, so just put these out of the way, grab, in my case here, the orange one first, make sure to find the middle, and then just pick out the holding cord. And remember, on this side I'm starting with the cord on the opposite side, so I'm also doing that when I'm attaching them, just to keep it consistent. And then just tighten that half of the knot, do the other half so it stays on properly, and then push it up, and then just attach that last, in my case yellow one, in the same way below that. Now that all my cords are then in place, we can start getting into the main pattern, and what I like to do is use some more pins here just to hold these ends in place, because we want to keep the distance between the two sides as consistent as possible, and using these pins can help with that. So I'm happy with how they're laying, so I just want to basically put my pin through the very last knot of the kind of first colour that I used, in my case the red one. So just something a bit like that. Same on the other side. There we go. Because then what we need to do is for the rows to start coming straight down as well, as opposed to going out at an angle like they did from the bottom of the loop there. That was just to kind of get to this point. So now we need to get into the pattern. So there's a bit of a rhythm to doing this to achieve the proper look that we want, especially when using different colours. Now what I'm going to do is start on one side. It doesn't matter what side you start on, as long as you stay consistent throughout to achieve that pattern there. So I'm going to start making my, you can say, first knot now after adding the colours on the left side, which means, because I'm making a knot on the left side, the inner working cords on this side here, I want to just bring out of the way. So I bring them up, and again I'm just using the pins here to help keep them out of the way, because what I want to do is make my square knot, and this is now going to be with a red colour. So I'm going to keep alternating with the colours in the same order that they're in now here. So first of all, I'm going to bring on the furthest left side, the outer side here, the top cord, which in my case is red currently, down over the top of the other two. So it's coming straight down, and then the cord I'm going to be using on the right side of this holding cord is actually going to be coming from the opposite side. So I'm going to pick out the red one in my case, so the top one, and just put the other ones out of the way here, instead of using the red one from this left side, because that's what we want to get that crossover effect. And this is going to be the working cord, the right one here on this left side. So we're going to otherwise do exactly the same thing, just be aware that we're using that cord. So on this left side I'm going to start with the left cord, bring that over, just make a basic square knot in the same way. And then as I'm tightening this, you do want to be aware though when tightening it regarding, like I said, the distance between, so you don't just want to pull it really tight, because that'll pull the two sides closer together, but you also don't want it too loose, because that would obviously kind of give you more loose cord. So something like that. Do the other half, which is then going to hold the knot in place where we want it to sit. Something like that. And now the red cords have moved to be the bottom ones on this side. So just put these out of the way. Because I've now done one knot on this side, I'm going to straight away go over to the right side, because we have to keep alternating from side to side as we're going down to achieve that effect. So go straight over here, just kind of bring your cords through, and then bring that holding cord more straight down. And now we basically want to do the same principle. So that means the inner cords, in this case now I only have two because I did use the first one, up and out of the way. And then I want to pick out the red one on the opposite side. So that's the very top one of the ones we put out of the way before. If I just bring them down, you can see there. It's the very top one of them. The other ones I keep out of the way though. So in the middle, if I just bring them down, you'll be able to see that they're actually going to cross over each other there. And basically create a perfect X almost. And then I'm going to use this to make my square knot on this side. And the same principle as before. Remember to start with the opposite side. Make your square knot. The outer one here gets brought down over the other two. Like that. And then as we tighten this, get it to the point where it sits just right. So again, as we're coming straight down, it's a nice distance between the two sides. So not too tight and not too loose. Make sure the first half is just where you want it. And then when you tighten the second half, it's going to stay in place. So now, if I just bring these two down, you can see we have that cross right there in the middle. So that is our first little crossover. And basically what we're going to do now is keep repeating the same thing. But obviously, as you can see, the colours are going to keep kind of swapping places, but that doesn't really matter. You can use them as reference to make sure you're on the right track, obviously, that everything is symmetrical. But next card we need to use is the orange one. And again, I'm going to then go to my left side because I just did my knot on the right side. I'm going to now do it on the left, which means I need to bring the inner ones on the left side up and out of the way. I'm going to take the top one on the outer cords there, which is orange, bring it down over the other ones. And for the inner working cord, that's one we need to get from the opposite side. And that's the orange one, or the top one of the three. And that naturally then goes over the other one that's, so the red one in my case, that's already in the middle. So once you've done this a couple of times, you're going to start to really be able to see the pattern we're going to get in the middle, kind of chevron. So start making your square knot. Tighten that first half just nicely. And then the other half. Again, making sure the distance is nice, not too tight, not too loose. And then going to the right side, just first of all, bring down my holding cord here, straight down. And then that means the two inner working cords go up and out of the way. And I then need to take the working cord from the opposite side instead. So you can just bring those all down here just to separate out the top one, in my case orange. And you'll be able to see in the middle how that's going to then cross over there. The outer one crosses over the other two. Remember to start from the opposite side. Tighten the first half. Not too tight. And then the other half, and sometimes you might find the first half loosens up a little bit, so just retighten it if you need to, before then tightening the other half of it. So there we go. Let's just bring them down and see what it looks like. You can see they're crossing over there nicely, and slowly start to see the effect that we're going to get. So basically you just want to continue doing this exact thing. So I just did my knot on the right side, and now I need to do my knot on the left side, which means the inner ones, inner working cords, go up and out of the way. I bring the outer one, top one, up over the others and down, and then I pick out the equivalent colour, or the top one, on the opposite side, and do my knot. Hold the holding cord taut down as I'm tightening the knot here. Do the other half. Make sure it's in place. There we go. And then to do the other side, bring the holding cord down. The inner working cords go up and out of the way. And then I want to pick out my equivalent colour here, so the yellow one. Bring that down to be the working cord. The outer one over the other two. Make your square knot the same way. Obviously on this side I'm starting from the opposite side. Just finish this off. Make sure that first half is just how I want it. So like that. And then if I just bring these down, then we can really start to see, and they've crossed in the middle. And then next is going to be the red cords again, and we're going to just basically keep repeating this over and over, and it's going to be then that pattern all the way down. Now along the way I will be moving my pins here, so for instance take one out and just bring them down along the way to help you keep that distance between them. And also you can, if you feel like it's getting a little bit too close, they're kind of working their way too close to each other, you can kind of pull them out a little bit as you're going. It's not as easy doing it after, but as you're going, if you feel like they're kind of moving a little bit too close, instead of undoing everything, just try and kind of pull them a little bit apart from each other. Obviously there's only so much you can do, but just keep going like this until I've reached the other end. So I now reached the other end here, and I made my final knots on both sides, and I've just ended up with my red cord. Doesn't really matter, but that's just what I have here. Now what I'm then going to do is the other cords you can literally put out of the way for now, just so we don't get tangled up with them. And I'm just going to keep using the final ones here, so in my case the red ones, because what we need to do now is I have the main part finished, so the pattern, but we need to make those short lengths that we did in the beginning as well. So just start on one side at a time, and we've already done the first knot there, so to make them the same amount of knots I just need to do 3 more because we need the 4 in total. So you just do another 3 on this side here. That's 1. 2, and the last one. 3 so far in total, because we're going to use these lengths to bring them together and then be able to add the button as well. But then just of course do the other side as well, starting from the opposite side. Do another 3 knots on this side as well, so we have 4 in total. We then need to bring the 2 sides together again, so we're going to end up having the 4 cords in the middle are going to be brought into one bundle, basically like we did on the other end when we'd done the loop, and they're going to then all be holding cords. So that means we're going to use the 2 outer cords, one on either side, as the working cords, so you can just kind of shape them towards each other. And then we want to make a square knot around all these cords here. Don't miss any of them out. And then pull that tight. You can see that brings them together nicely. Just finish off that square knot so it stays in place. And then again, I like to just go in and pull on the individual cords just a little bit, just in case there's any little bit of loose cord, and we can tighten that up. So like that. Now what I want to do is, before I actually add in my button, I just want to get rid of some of these cords here, because I currently have 4 cords in the middle that are holding cords, and I just want 2 when I'm going to add the button. So what I'm going to do is, I'm just separating out my cords, and I'm just grabbing the 2 in the middle, which are also my 2 shortest ones, happens to be. And then before I make the next knot, I just want to add a little bit of glue, and I'm going to be using my E6000 and just a toothpick to be able to add it. So it really doesn't need to be too much, just a little bit here. And I basically want to add it on the holding cords, so I'm adding it onto them before I make my next knot. So basically the glue is going to end up inside of the knot, more or less. It's going to be hidden. So just add a little bit here. That's fine, because when we then grab our working cords to make the next square knot, the knot is going to be made right on top of where that glue is. So I made the first half now. What I then do is, this is where I like to go in and cut off the cords that I want to cut. So I made my first half of the knot. I cut off the 2 middle cords as close to the knot as possible, so like that. And then I go in and then I make the other half. Because that then really makes it as secure and seamless as possible. And again, there's going to be some glue inside of this knot. So there we go. And obviously you can leave that to dry. But I'm then here now left with the 2 holding cords where I can add my button in. So I'm just going to get to the end. I want to get both of the cords, if I can here, through the button. Might have to just feed one through at a time. So like that. And then bring it all the way down to sit just like that. Nice decorative as well. And then what you'll see is this button is attached onto both of these holding cords. And when I then bring the working cords down and around, it's basically as if adding a bead, more or less, obviously, except we have this decorative part that's going to kind of be covering all of it. I'm then going to make another square knot below the button, and it then cages it in place. So basically the working cords are going around the sides of the shank part. Of course, just make the other half as well. So like that. And then you can always go in, if you want it extra secure, just add a little bit more glue here. Doesn't have to be too much at all. And I'm going to be making another knot, but before doing that, we can just add a little bit of glue on those holding cords. And again, that's going to be within the knot then. So literally just something like that. Make another square knot. And these are going to be hidden underneath that button anyway. But we do want it to be nice and secure, and obviously not have the knots come undone when we wear it. So like that. And now I have 2 square knots after I added the button in. I prefer doing that rather than just one. It's just a bit more secure. So this is now the button added in, and all that's left to do now really is get rid of all the cords. Now if you want to use glue, or if you're using a natural cord so you can't singe the ends down, what you would do is, wherever the cords are coming out from, you'd want to add a bit of glue right to that little area, and then you want to cut off the excess. So obviously making sure that nothing's going to unravel. Now if you are using a synthetic cord like I am here, what I'm going to be doing is singeing down the end. So basically that means melting the cord. So I'm just going to show you what I do. So just do a few at a time. So here, for instance, I'm going to cut off the majority of the cord, but leave just a millimeter or two. So something a bit like that. And then I'm going to get a lighter. Now obviously be careful, this is a naked flame, so it does get hot. But then I go in and basically singe the ends down, so melt them. And then you can use the lighter to just push them in. And that literally seals the cords in place so nothing will unravel or come undone. And you can do that with all of them, all the way around. So your bracelet is now done and ready to wear, and we get this really cool effect, especially if you're using 3 different colours of your cord. Now don't forget to check out my Etsy shop for the written tutorial, link in the description box down below the video. And also, if you like your macrame, I have loads more where that came from on my channel. So I hope you enjoyed this one though. Thank you so much for watching it, and I'll see you in the next one.